and welcome to a new video. Today it is time for the final outer layers of my Fairy Gourd Mother outfit to come to life. I'm going to use this pattern as my starting point. It is Simplicity 3727. I love the volume in this skirt and the shape of the bodice is just beautiful. I will probably change up the shape of the sleeves a bit, make them a little more puffy and pumpkin-y. And I think rather than the fringing that's on the bodice, I'm going to play with some piping instead. But before I dive into all this, I need to finish my underthings. I made most of them last week, but because of the size of the skirt I want in this outfit, I am definitely going to need a petticoat. So that's what I'm going to tackle first up today, and maybe a bum pad just to give a little extra poof to the back of the skirt. And then we can move on to the gown. The shape of this petticoat is going to be super simple. I'm just going to cut 2 panels from this fabric, the width of the fabric, which will then have the waistband section gathered down with a drawstring, which will make it a lot easier to adjust, and then just adding ruffles in tiers all the way down to the hem. So not complicated, but probably going to be very time consuming, what with all the hemming of the ruffles that I'm about to have to do. Maybe it's time I learn how to use my rolled hem foot. I tried it once and failed and never went back to it because I found it so much easier to just do it myself by hand. But there is going to be a lot of hem involved with this project. Let's get to cutting it out. All the petticoat pieces now cut out, really nice and simple. It's all rectangular and this fabric tears really nicely, so I could just snip and rip every single piece. I love it. These are the main base petticoat pieces that all the ruffles will attach to. So I'm just going to sew the 2 pieces together, and then I'm going to sew all these ruffles together. To make the math easy, I've just done a 2-to-1 ratio, so there is twice as much width in the ruffles as there is in the base petticoat. I think my poor machine's overdue for a service. Something is just catching there, and at the same point when the needle's up, it's just not super happy. Something isn't quite sitting right in there, and I have a lot more seams to stitch with all these ruffles to do, so I'm gonna put this one aside and pull out my handy dandy spare one. ruffle tiers are now attached. When I put on this first bottom one, I thought, oh, I don't know if it's going to be ruffly enough. I think it will be. I think it's good. This is going to be super fun to wear and just twirl in. And I think it will give lots of volume to any skirt I wear it under. Now, to add to the volume, I have gone ahead and bought a hoop skirt. I really wanted to make it myself, but I did not have the time or the materials to make one. So it's still on my to be made list, but won't be part of this project. But until that arrives, I don't actually want to finish the top edge because I'm not actually 100% sure how long this will need to be, because it's not going to be my waist to floor length or waist to some heels. It's going to be waist out to floor, so it will actually be longer than my usual skirts need to be. But all this does need is that measurement, and then the top edge will get folded over and a channel sewn in so that I can thread a drawstring through. Until that turns up, I am going to put this aside and move on to the next part, which I think I'm going to do the bum pad so that I can add extra poof. So helpfully, this pattern does actually have a little bustle pad pattern. So I'm going to use theirs. I'm just going to use the same fabric I used for the petticoat and quickly make that. Bustle pad is finished. That was nice and easy to make, but now that's as far as I can go on the under things. So that means I am up to cutting out my orange fabric. And I think since I'm currently kind of in skirt land, I'm going to work on the skirt first. I believe it is just big rectangles that are cartridge pleated down, so that should be relatively simple to cut out. Skirt pieces all cut. Now it's just a matter of assembling it. So these panels get turned into one big tube and then cartridge pleated down to fit the waistband. And I need to put a slit in the middle of one of these panels, which will become the center back opening. All my gathering stitches are now in the waistband area of the skirt, so it is ready to be cartridge pleated down. But I came into the workroom this morning ready to sew together my waistband pieces so that I have something to attach the skirt to. And there is no power here today, so that makes it a little difficult to sew. While I do have a lot of machines, sadly I don't have an antique treadle machine. Not yet anyway. But that does mean that today, or until the power comes back on, I am restricted to hand sewing, which would be perfect if I had gotten these together last night. And I could still get them together. They're not a super large piece of sewing that would take me forever to do by hand. But I do also need to cut out all the bodice pieces because I have not cut them out yet. I don't need power to cut those. So I think I'm gonna start with that. That will probably take me an hour or two because I need to cut lining and fashion fabric. So yeah, I'm going to start with those, see if the power comes back on, because without the power I also can't use the iron and I want to be able to iron the waistband as I sew it. I also can't really listen to music or watch my shows while I do this. I'm sewing in the dark ages over here. An hour and a half later and all my bodice pieces are cut out. So that was nice and productive. However, the power is still not back on. So I guess I need to hand sew a waistband now. Waistband is all done and together. It does need a good iron, but I still have no power, so short of laying it out on the driveway and driving over it in my car, that's not going to happen. Now I'm going to attach the skirt panels to this, and each panel is going to be gathered down to fit in between each of these pins. And then I just have to whip stitch all the pleats on by hand. This skirt panel is essentially my table times 2. This is it doubled over because it's a tube. This is the little waistband it's got to go on. So that's how much fabric can be in a cartridge pleated skirt. I've got the skirt together and the waistband attached. The power did come back on yesterday afternoon, but it was when I was in very much hand stitching mode, so it wasn't that helpful. But I will need it this morning, so I'm glad it's back, because I am now going to move on from the skirt and work on the bodice. The skirt does still need a hem, but I'm still waiting on my hoop skirt to turn up so that I can get the length right over that. But for now, I'm going to work on the bodice, and I believe the first step is flatlining the bodice pieces together and stitching some darts in. Flatlining is just turning two pieces of fabric into one. So I'm going to take my side back bodice piece here, and this is my wrong side, and I'm going to place the lining on there. Make sure everything lines up nicely and stitch around the edge so that it becomes one piece of fabric and it gets treated as such from now on. If you're seeing some wobbles in my camera work, it's the fault of my cameraman. Let me show you. He's down here sleeping on the job. My bodice pieces are all flat-lined and overlocked to finish the edges, and I have also done the 3 darts in each of the front pieces. The last thing I need to do to these is add a little bit of boning to the top of each of these darts. Then I can start putting all the seams together, and I think I'll put in some piping into each seam just to break up the orange a little bit with some black. Bodice is coming along nicely. I really like how the piping looks, so I'm glad I decided to add it. Although I do hope that this bodice fits relatively well as is. I haven't made any alterations, and having the piping in the seams makes future alterations a little more tricky. Now I've got to finish this bottom edge, which is done with the facing. And I'm also going to put piping through there, because why not? I've put it everywhere else. And then I can start figuring out sleeves. The bottom hem facing is now all finished. I love the way a facing looks. It just seems to be that little bit fancier than any other finish. So it makes me feel like my work is higher level than it actually is. So to now finish this off, I need to add some closures in this front, and I also need to put the sleeves on. Now I did just chop off some of this shoulder area because it did sit quite far down my arm, which if I was making a historically accurate era gown, I would have left. But for my own comfort and range of mobility, I decided to cut off that probably an inch and a half, just to bring it further up onto the shoulder, because I also do want to change the sleeve shape. Theirs is a sort of droopy from that shoulder point one. I want puffy. So these are my sleeve pieces, the outer and the lining, and I did cut them as to the pattern, which is all jaggedy, for these pleats to all sit nicely. But I think what I'm actually going to do is disregard all of that, even it out, and just gather it down so it has that puff rather than flat, neat pleats. I also added length to the bottom of it. I'm not sure what I'm going to do with that. Maybe gather it into an elastic. The sleeves are in and they are gloriously puffy. This bodice brings me so much joy. It is just a little bit crazy and over the top and orange. All I need to do to it now is put some closures in the front. I am going to use just some hook and loop tape because I think it's so much quicker to put on than the individual ones, which are so fiddly. But I am going to sew it on by hand because I don't want the stitching to show on the outside of this. It's finished, all the fastenings are attached on the inside. That means the top half of this look is finished. I just need to do the hem of the orange one and the top of the petticoat that is under there. My hoop has turned up so I can try them on with the hoop underneath and check what length they need to be. This hoop is hilarious to wear. I've had to move my mirror out from behind my cutting table because I just could not fit behind there in this thing. In fact, it's so big that my petticoat doesn't fit over it. So that's problem number one. I did think that this could potentially happen because I didn't know the hoop's circumference. So I was just guesstimating. I'll put this aside for the moment and try on my skirt and see if that will go over. Fingers crossed. So the skirt does fit over the petticoat and it's giving pumpkin in the best way. I'm so happy. Lengthwise, I think it's actually just perfect. I don't think I want it much shorter than that, especially if I was to put on some heels. So I think I'm gonna do my new favorite thing, which is that tiny rolled hem with the roll hem foot, and that will be this skirt finished. The skirt is hemmed, so my pumpkin dress is finished, technically. It is all ready to wear and go frolic the night away. However, I do think she needs some final finishing touches, such as a hat and maybe a bag. So that is what I'm going to make today. This video is probably getting monstrously long, I apologize. But actually let me know what length of video you guys enjoy watching, because I end up with about 3 hours worth of footage after every project that I try to edit down into about 25 minutes. So there's a lot that ends up on the cutting room floor. But back to this, I think I'm gonna make a witch's hat because I do feel like the Fairy Gourd Mother is witch adjacent, and then see if I can come up with a pumpkin-y bag. I don't really know what I'm doing. I have no patterns or really plans. I'm just going to create today and see what happens. And then if I have any time left at the end, maybe add some like embellishment on the actual dress, maybe some vines up the skirt. I would like to do that. I don't know if I will get that done. this is the final form this year of the Fairy Gourd Mother. I love her. Words cannot express how much joy this costume brings me. Frolicking around in this bright orange monstrosity is just so much fun. Overall, this entire ensemble I love so much. I'm a little sad that I have nowhere to wear it, although I don't know how I would fit in anywhere if I tried to wear it. How did they host Victorian balls? Your event space must need to be huge just to fit all the skirts in. But they are very fun to frolic in. I highly recommend frolicking in a Victorian skirt. But I think next year I am going to have to host a Halloween party, so I have somewhere to wear this. And you are all invited. Wear your craziest get-up and let's party. Thanks so much for watching, guys, and I will catch you next week. Bye!